Hey everyone, you know how much we love diving into tech that seems like it's straight out of science fiction?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, get this, today we're looking at helmet-mounted display systems. You know, HMDS,
Yeah.
and specifically the F-35 Gen III HMDS.
Nice.
It's basically like giving pilots a sixth sense.
like straight up superpowers.
Right. And the company behind it all, Collins Elbit Vision Systems, CEVS for short.
CEVS.
They just hit a huge milestone. They delivered their 3,000th system.
3,000. That's wild. When you think about it, that's a testament to how much trust there is in this tech.
Oh, yeah.
And CEVS has delivered over 20,000 systems across 40 different fighter aircraft platforms.
Yeah.
It's really kind of crazy how much they're impacting modern aerial combat.
That's a ton of helmets and a ton of trust. So let's break it down. What makes this F-35 Gen III HMDS so special? What can it do that like older systems couldn't?
Okay, so imagine this. You're a pilot, right?
Okay.
High speed, high stakes situation. You need crucial information instantly. No time to look away from the target.
Yeah.
Boom, that's where the HMDS comes in. It's not just seeing in the dark. It's about having all that data, flight stuff, targeting info, even enemy positions projected right onto your visor.
Wow.
It's like augmented reality, but in a fighter jet.
Okay, so you've got all this data right there in your face. But how does that actually help the pilot make a decision?
Right.
Seems like it could be kind of overwhelming.
That's the thing. CEVS designed it with this really intuitive user interface.
Okay.
Super efficient, even in crazy combat situations.
Okay.
Think about how you use your smartphone. You don't have to dig through a million menus, right?
Yeah.
It's all right there at your fingertips. Same idea with the HMDS. Pilots get the info they need super fast, super intuitively, lets them stay focused on what matters.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not about just more data. It's about the right data displayed in a useful way.
Bingo. One of the co-general managers at CEVS, Karl, he said it perfectly. The HMDS gives pilots in combat zones unmatched situational awareness. Having that whole picture, where you are, what's happening around you, that's a game changer in combat.
Sounds like it could the difference between life or death, not just for the pilot, but for the whole mission.
Definitely. And that's why we see this technology being adopted everywhere. We're talking over 1 million flight hours logged on CEVS systems.
Really?
Think about that, 1 million flight hours. All that data, all that real-world experience feeding back into their development.
1 million flight hours? That's insane. It really shows the impact they're having. So they've clearly knocked it out of the park with this F-35 Gen III HMDS, but are they just sitting back now?
Not a chance. CEVS is already looking ahead, always pushing the limits. Just 5 months ago, they unveiled the 0G HMDS Plus draft.
Oh, wow.
Designed specifically for the next generation of fighter aircraft. Lighter, more capable, and safer for the pilot.
The Plus version, that's what I call progress. We've talked a lot about what it can do, but I'm curious about the practical side. What about the cost? The maintenance?
Yeah.
Are we talking crazy expensive?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, the exact cost of the F-35 Gen III HMDS isn't public. Military contracts are a whole other beast. They keep those details pretty hush-hush.
Yeah, I bet. Not like you could just add it to your Amazon cart.
Haha, exactly. But it's safe to say it's a pretty big investment, right? You're talking cutting-edge technology, top-of-the-line materials, and super skilled people building and designing it all.
Makes sense. And it's not just the helmet itself.
Right.
It's part of a whole system that needs to work perfectly with the aircraft.
You got it. You have to think about integrating it with all the aircraft systems, the ongoing software updates, and of course, the maintenance. And speaking of which, keeping these helmets in top shape,
Yeah.
definitely not a walk in the park. Extreme G-forces, temperature swings, you name it.
You'd want someone who really knows their stuff when it comes to maintenance.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Regular inspections, calibrations, potential repairs, all crucial to make sure everything's running smoothly.
It's good that CEVS has such a solid track record. Clearly, they know how to build and maintain these super complex systems.
For sure, their experience with over 20,000 systems across 40 different platforms speaks for itself. But what's really cool is that they're not just focused on the now.
Right.
Remember that 0G HMDS Plus we talked about?
Yeah.
It's designed to be adaptable to older aircraft models, too.
So they're not just making stuff for the newest jets, they're making sure a wider range of pilots can benefit.
Exactly. It shows they're committed to improving pilot safety and capability across the board. It's clear that CEVS is really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with HMDS.
It's really amazing how far this technology has come. From those clunky old displays to these sleek, systems that feel like something out of a movie.
It really makes you wonder what they'll come up with next. But before we get too lost in the future, I think it's important to step back and think about what all this means for aerial combat as a whole.
That's a great point. We talked about the tech, what it can do, the costs, but what are the bigger implications of having this kind of technology in the hands of pilots?
Well, on the one hand, it could make aerial combat safer by giving pilots a much clearer view of what's happening.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it kind of raises the stakes when it comes to technology. As these systems get more and more advanced,
Yeah.
the countermeasures, the things designed to mess with them or trick them, those get more advanced too. It's like this constant back and forth,
Let's see.
a tech arms race, you could say.
Like a high-tech game of cat and mouse,
Yeah.
but at supersonic speed.
Exactly. And that's why companies like CEVS are constantly innovating, always trying to stay one step ahead. They're not just building helmets, they're shaping the future of air combat.
It's crazy to think about how fast things are changing in this field. We started this deep dive talking about having all this information right there in our vision.
Yeah.
And it's already a reality for these pilots. But like you said, it's not just about the tech, it's about the people using it.
Absolutely. You could have the most amazing helmet in the world, but if the pilot doesn't know how to use it effectively in these crazy situations, it's not going to be nearly as good.
So like a partnership, the technology pushes the limits and then the training has to catch up.
That's a great way to put it. It's a constant cycle of getting better and adapting. And it's not just the pilots, it's the whole support system. The technicians who keep those helmets running, the engineers writing the software, the analysts looking at the data. It's a huge team effort.
It really shows you the human side of all this amazing tech. We often get caught up in the hardware and the specs, but it's the people who make it all work. But I'm curious, with all this talk about these advanced systems, what about the pilots themselves? How have they adjusted to this whole new way of seeing and fighting?
That's a really interesting question. From what I've seen, the transition's been pretty smooth, actually. Pilots are used to dealing with a lot of information in the cockpit already.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So having it all laid out in a way that makes more sense, that's easier to access, it's actually made their jobs easier.
So instead of being overwhelmed by all the data, they're actually empowered by it.
Exactly, and that's because of how well the HMDS is designed and how adaptable the pilots are. They're constantly learning and changing to keep up with all the new tech.
It's like they're becoming part of the machine, using the technology to make themselves better. Almost like something out of a superhero movie. But seriously, all this integration, it raises some questions about the future of war. What happens when the lines between humans and machines get even blurrier?
Whoa, that's a big one. And it's definitely something we need to think carefully about. As technology keeps advancing, we have to think about the ethics of it all.
Right, we have to make sure we're using this stuff responsibly, ethically. Always remembering the human side of things.
Couldn't agree more. This is a conversation that needs everyone involved. The people making policy, the leaders in the industry, and the public too. We can't just blindly accept new tech without thinking about what could happen.
It's about finding the right balance.
Yep.
Pushing things forward, but doing it the right way.
Exactly. But it's a challenge we got to face if we want tech to help humanity, not the other way around.
That's a great point. Sounds like we've covered a lot today. From the details of the F-35 Gen III HMDS to the bigger questions about its impact on air combat.
It's been a pretty amazing discussion.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, what are the key things you think our listeners should take away from all this?
Well, the biggest thing is that military technology is always changing. We're seeing these incredible advancements that are pushing the limits, and the HMDS is a perfect example of that.
Totally. It's not just a fancy helmet. It's changing how wars are fought, how pilots experience being in combat.
And while it's awesome to think about all that, we got to remember the ethics involved and make sure we're using this technology the right way.
Absolutely. It's not enough to just make cool stuff. We need to talk about how it's used and what impact it has on the world.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, this has been an eye-opening deep dive, and I hope our listeners walking away with a sense of awe and curiosity about this whole world of military tech.
Me too. It's a field that's constantly pushing what humans can do, and it's going to keep shaping our world for a long time to come.
So, to our listeners out there, keep digging into this topic. There's tons of information out there, and the more we understand, the better we'll be able to talk about these important issues.
And who knows, maybe you'll be inspired to contribute to the next big thing in military tech.
Now, there's a thought. We're just at the beginning, and there's so much potential for the future.
That's for sure. So, till next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep those helmets shiny. Totally agree. It's been great exploring this with you.
Yeah, same here. It's funny, we started talking about CEVS hitting that 3,000th F-35 helmet milestone.
Right.
Pretty incredible achievement when you think about it.
It is. So many pilots have been impacted by this tech. It's kind of mind-blowing.
Totally.
Yeah.
And even after all this discussion, it feels like we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to learn, so many questions still unanswered.
That's what makes it so fascinating. The more you learn, the more you realize there is to know.
Exactly. And speaking of what's out there, what about the future? We talked a bit about the zero-G HMDS plus S, but what other cool advancements are coming down the pipeline for these helmet-mounted display systems?
Ooh, that's a good question. And one that I'm personally really excited about. Things are moving so fast in this field, it's incredible. There's already research going on for things like, get this, brain-computer interfaces.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
Brain-computer interfaces.
Where pilots could control the HMDS with their thoughts.
Whoa, that's like next-level stuff.
Yeah.
Mind control in a fighter jet sounds straight up sci-fi to me.
I know, right? But it's not as crazy as it sounds. The research is coming along. It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
It really makes you wonder what other futuristic capabilities they'll pack into these helmets down the line.
The sky's the limit, right? Imagine real-time language translation so pilots from different countries can talk to each other easily. Or a system that analyzes what the enemy is doing and predicts their next move.
Wow, that could give pilots a huge advantage.
Right. The possibilities are kinda endless.
It's mind-blowing to think about what kind of impact that could have.
Definitely. And it's not just about upping the combat game, it's also about keeping pilots safer and minimizing casualties. Imagine a system that keeps tabs on a pilot's vitals and lets the ground crew know if they're getting tired or stressed.
That could be huge for both pilot safety and making sure missions are successful. But, okay, let's bring it back down to Earth for a sec. Future stuff is cool, but what about the here and now? What are some of the biggest challenges facing HMDS development right now?
Well, one of the big ones is balancing what it can do with how much it costs. These systems are really complex and advanced,
Yeah.
which means they're expensive to make. Figuring out how to make this technology more affordable and easier to use is going to be key if we want to see it used more widely.
Makes sense. And I imagine cybersecurity and data protection are big concerns too, with all this sensitive information flowing through these systems.
Oh, absolutely.
Keeping them safe from hackers and attacks has got to be a top priority.
For sure. Cybersecurity is crucial for any military tech these days, and HMDS is no exception. Protecting these systems from bad actors is super important for operational security and, of course, pilot safety.
So there's a lot going on, both exciting opportunities and some serious challenges.
You got it. But it's an area worth exploring because these advances in HMDS tech could really change how air combat happens in the future.
Couldn't agree more. Well, to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you a good look into the world of helmet-mounted display systems. We've talked about their history, what they can do, the ethical stuff, and what the future might hold.
It's been a fun ride, and we hope you'll keep following this field as it develops.
We've just scratched the surface, and who knows what amazing breakthroughs are coming next. So keep learning, keep those questions coming, and keep those helmet visors clean.
Until next time.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.